I call this meeting to order at 5:00 PM. This is a regular meeting of the Port Edwards Public Safety Meeting, Thursday, November 2nd. I declare that we're all here and we meet quorum. Can I get a motion and a second to approve both the agenda and the previous month, September 6th, 26th minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by trustee Grundon,
Second.
seconded by trustee Moore. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, motion carried. Trustee chairperson comment, that's right. I just would like to thank our two chiefs for the work that you've been doing in your departments and keeping them functioning and staying in the budget, and I appreciate your work as well. Public comments. Harry?
I have a question. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's done, like when the budget comes out, do you talk to the townships, like when the ambulance, you guys knew that the increase was coming? For the ambulance for 6 months, does the township know the fire contracts are going up or anything like that? Or do they just get a letter in December and saying that's what it is? Do they
That
know
would be Diane.
yeah, I did talk to Diane today about it. I'll have to just ask again and how that works, because she indicated that she entered into one of the contracts, or she knew of one of them, but she, for instance, one of the townships, she's never got her payment from. I don't know, I mean, she didn't give any names, but there's a little bit of maybe some confusion. You don't necessarily see those numbers, do you?
She sends them to me and I just review them. I have a lot of kind of questions how all that's figured out too. It's a big mathematical formula based on our budget and a certain percentage of that calculated with the mill rate of these other municipalities, and it's this big complex formula, and it all gets figured out in the end. And
Do you get notified when they pay the village?
no, I don't know when the money changes hands. I know it all takes place in like February, March.
For the whole year?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't go directly to the fire department.
Right,
It
I
goes
mean,
into the
yeah.
general fund and then we're funding the.
Ask your question again, Carrie, so we can get it and we can pass it
I
on.
guess, like the ambulance service for the village here, you've known for 6 months, 7 months that it was going up next year. Does the other townships that we deal with on the fire service or whatever service we give them, do they get that much notice? Cause I mean, I go to the other meetings and it's come December, they get a bill and it's due in January. For the village, they take one payment, Nacusa gets 2 payments a year. But it's always in December, they get a bill and they're like, well, our hands are tied. I mean, you got no time to look around. And then if like Tierra wants to combine with Grand Rapids has.
Tierra does not.
Or
Tierra
not
never
Grand
said that.
Rapids. Not say Grand Rapids, but I mean.
I didn't say combine with anybody either.
But, okay.
Merge, whatever you wanna call it. If they're involved in any of that conversations.
Yeah.
Our ambulance contract wouldn't affect them.
We have a rule.
Yeah, right.
But we get, with our ambulance service, when we switched to Grand Rapids. We were notified and then we contacted Rapids and United and had them come to a meeting, give our quotes. And we went with Rapids. They were $14,000 more than United, but we went with Rapids services. But I mean, knew that it was coming at a time, but on the fire department end of it, be it from Nacusa or from Port in the township, it's come December, we get a bill and it went up 13%. But our budgets, just like your budgets here, are done in October, November. We've already considered our budgets in October, November, but we don't get the bill until December.
I don't think we've discussed upping the fire contracts. I don't think have
But
we?
he's
I think
saying
it's
that we
too
wouldn't
honest.
find, you're saying we wouldn't find that out in advance, I think is what you're
That's what
saying.
I'm saying. We, as a
Yeah.
township, if you guys are going to increase the budgets, when do you inform the townships?
I don't know that it would, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know that it would affect any of our fire contracts, just because the ambulance service isn't a line in the fire department budget.
No.
I mean, it's
That-
a village expense,
Mhm.
but the the fire contracts are calculated based off our budget numbers, but maybe I'm wrong because I don't fully understand it. But even so, I wouldn't think that, I mean, those townships have their own agreements with Wisconsin Rapids Ambulance or United or Nakusa or whoever, so.
I just, when we get the bill and it's always in December, and we pay the one in the court in January, and Nakusa gets one in January and June, they take 2 payments. But it's, all of a sudden, it's just, here's the bill and it's increased, we were never told, hey, we're looking, or letters saying, hey, we are going to look at increasing our fire services. I don't, if that's ever been put out. You know, and I know Chief has never been involved in it, it's always come from Diane type of how the numbers figure out.
Yeah,
But it's,
I don't know that she's mentioned any of that. That's not been a discussion on the table at this point as far as changing rates or anything. Have you heard it? I haven't.
no, but I'll sit down with her and just get it all fleshed out and kind of understand how the process works.
like I
How
said,
it's
I just,
working for her.
and, I mean, and just fire service, it goes even down to garbage pickup. You know, garbage pickup was a great big increase last year because they said fuel cost. Well, it was a 17% increase, you know, which turns out to be about 35 grand. But when you budget in November, and you think, well, okay, we'll give it a 2% increase, and then you get a freaking bill in January or December, and it's a 17% increase, it's a, where do you come up with that money?
Okay. I'll pass that question on, or have her watch for the meeting. No, but that, I mean, yeah, those are, I mean, thank you for those questions. I appreciate those questions. Chief Warden, would you like to give us an update of your department?
Sure. So the big news in October was, Assistant Chief Tim Leverance announced that he's going to retire at the end of the year. He's been a great asset to the fire department. He has a lot of knowledge, and, in your packet is his retirement letter, but he asked that I read it to the village. So, dear Fire Department / Village Board and PFC, it is with heavy heart that I am writing this letter to inform you that I have decided to retire from the Port Edwards Fire Department. I have enjoyed my time on this department and have made many friends and worked beside some of the most dedicated and courageous people that I know. I will miss my firefighter family, but take with me lots of great memories and friendships that have been built over the last 28 years. I look forward to continuing my relationship with the current and retired firefighters in the future. I would like to thank the village for the opportunity to allow me to be part of the Port Edwards Fire Department. There have been many changes in the last 28 years, from the equipment we use to the training we need, as well as the number of years of service that I've seen go through this department. I've even lost some very good friends that I had learned and fought beside many of those years. Over those years, sorry. This job has given me lots of education and taught me to follow command and listen to the knowledge of those that have learned and earned my respect over the course of my trainings and years of service. I know there are lots of challenges ahead, but I ask that you consider this group of well-trained firefighters have the knowledge, the ability, and will to do a job that only a select few would ever think of doing. They are on this department because they want to serve and protect, not because they need to. Numbers of volunteer firemen are becoming far and few between. You must work with them and stop trivial stuff that tears them apart. This department has always followed the rules and made sure we were up to date on all aspects of our equipment and regulations. When a firefighter leaves, they take all their knowledge with them. I've seen this over and over the last 10 to 15 years. In conclusion, please treat the firefighters as heroes. They deserve the honor and praise of every person in this village for the job they do. You may need them one day, you may need them someday, and there is no dollar value that can replace a family member or personal belongings. Thank you again, and best wishes to you in the future. Sincerely, Timothy Leverance, Assistant Chief. I should have seen that for last.
Well, actually, Chief Warden, could you later, as Chair of Public Safety and Vice President, could you direct me and And Betsy, since this is the first retirement of the departments that I've been chair, I'd like to help be directed on what we should do when somebody retires on our end to make
Mhm.
sure that the proper things, because I remember at one point, there was a word that said that there was something done in the past, there's a few retirements that just kind of went unrecognized and unnoticed by the board. So I want to make sure that that gets recognized as it has been and should be, so.
Yep, I appreciate that, and I have that in my notes here too. We should honor his years of service with a plaque or
Oh,
a nice form of
sorry, I should just
recognition.
let you continue.
No, it's fine. And I'm glad you came up with that on your own because I think it's important also. You know,
Did,
20
did
20
that get done for Craig?
Mhm.
Good.
Yep, he was presented with a plaque. Boz and Tim worked together on that, has Craig's badge and.
Oh, yeah, I,
so they
I
mounted
think there was a
it.
photo, was there,
Yep.
there was a photo that was uploaded, wasn't there?
Mhm.
Okay.
good.
So, yeah, 28 years of service is nothing to sneeze at. That's a long time. So I wish you well, Tim. Tough to move on after that. Engine 2 is currently being serviced. I wrote this when it was currently being serviced, is done being serviced. It was fine. There were some things that were identified during our last pump test. Just some leaking valves and some gauges, things that we still passed our test, but they were failing, so I opted to have them replaced and rebuilt rather than let it slip into disrepair. Let's see, what else? We have some results from Jessica, our professional grant writer. I included that in the packet. And there's about a dozen of them. Where we go from here is the question. She identified these grants. That was what we hired her for. We can pursue them on our own. I would love some help if anyone is willing to help. I have some soft commitments. Well, you know, let me know if you need a hand kind of thing. Well, I'm letting everyone know I need a hand. Or, we can take this to the next level. She can help us write the grants. We can take it to the level after that, and she will write the grants. All for different costs, of course. So,
So these are the grants that are available, not the ones that you haven't reached out to any of these yet, or
No.
haven't written any
no,
of these.
not yet. Except the DNR grant. We usually go after that one every year.
Okay.
Do you know? So, for example, the Walmart Foundation one, I don't know if it's the same form, but I've written that one in the past, and
Yeah.
that one's not real extensive.
No.
But then you look at some other grants and they're very extensive, and so I think when you're asking for help, I'm one who's like, yup, but it depends on the time commitment, right?
Right.
And that's probably the same for you, for everyone in the room, so.
Mhm.
I mean, do you have a preference for which ones, or it's just really? Or is this kind of where she left it? She's like, okay, now we figure it out from here.
Right. That was her job to find these grants, and
Okay.
she said, here you go. And it,
Like this one says highly competitive, right? I wish it was like, this one's pretty easy to get.
Well, that's the DNR one.
Right.
That's the highest dollar amount, so.
Well, and then like
Here's what
the
goes after that.
$10,000 one, like, okay, how, so I guess maybe that's some more research on our part.
Right, I have just a little bit of experience writing grants. Have not had a successful one yet, so,
Okay.
I have seen some successful ones over the years. Doug Kanowski worked on a few of them, and his file is that thick, and they were
Yeah.
very involved.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like I said, I'm good at finding them, but I don't have the time for writing them.
I'll take a look.
Okay, so I'll leave that where it is. I wanted to touch back on the last meeting was the same day that Urco did the tabletop exercise. You talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to add that in my notes just because I said I was going to during the last meeting, so they did a tabletop exercise. They simulated an overturned truck with chemical cylinders on September 26th. From what I understand, it was very good training, very educational. Everyone worked well together, so that was good, and I appreciate that they did that. October was Fire Prevention Month. Big thank you to everyone who helped out and organized. We get groups of kids coming through the station for tours, and we go out to schools and classrooms and things like that, and give some fire education. It's actually kind of fun. I used to do it quite a bit when I worked second shift. And we're exactly on pace with last year's call volume. 210 calls year to date. Last year was 210 calls year to date, so. That is about all I have. Anyone have any questions?
I have to ask one.
Yeah.
Smoke bomb in a chipmunk hole? Did anybody else go?
That's the way the call,
Yeah.
that's the way the call came through. Someone put a smoke bomb in a chipmunk hole and the house had smoke in it.
Thank you.
They did it inside the house or it just came into the house?
I assume it was next to the foundation.
Oh,
They
okay.
dropped it in there and
The question is, did the chipmunk come out?
One-
And did it come into the house?
Why do I feel like this is like one of those Groundhog Day
Yeah.
scenarios? You know, it reminded me, what your department needs is one of those like firehouses for, fairs.
Oh, smokehouse.
Smokehouse, yeah, that was thinking it was a smokehouse because I used to crawl in there when I was really little, you know,
Mhm.
and they set it on fire or what we thought was on fire, scared the living hell out of me, and I think it's worth,
And you wanna give that.
You guys have access to that, right?
I think it would, the fully fear of fire prevention.
Yep, we're planning on, getting, there's a smoke trailer, it's called. It's kind of like that. It's got some simulated, you know, a garbage can on fire, a stove on fire, and it's got some fake smoke. It's a trailer. But we actually, the Athletic Association actually donated some money to help with the construction of that trailer. So we don't get it every year just because we don't want it to get stale or boring. Yeah, so next year we're going to, so. You're welcome to crawl through it and
Thank you, that's all I'm asking, I'm not asking much.
relive some of your nostalgic years.
Yeah. Any other questions for Chief Warden? Okay, Chief Crew. Give us an update.
Okay, squad one, our 2018 Ford Explorer has been repaired. The taillight was repaired and dent attempted to be popped out. We did end up making an insurance claim on that, per Dwayne's direction. We do have a $500 deductible. The amount to fix it was $860.64. The insurance company, I was just corresponding with them today. They're actually looking to see if we want to fix it to normal standards or just keep it the way it is. At this point, I'm leaning toward just keeping the way it is, but I need to talk with the claims adjuster a little bit more to see if there would be additional cost to the village. Or if that would just be still under a $500 deductible. But so that is yet to be determined, but I have been corresponding with the agent. We had 9 open shifts that were partially covered this month. I don't think we had any completely open, but we assisted with the Wisconsin State Cross Country Meet held at the Ridges. We've done that throughout its history there. They finally took law enforcement suggestions and are now doing everything based on right turns. So 16th and Griffith is our intersection, and that usually was really quite exhausting. because of buses trying to get out and get through and whatever, but the way they changed it this year, Officer Brundage worked it. She said that in talking to the Grand Rapids chief, we're probably not gonna even be needed next year, so. But I usually fill that with part-time and Alicia has been real good at covering that for us, so. We participated in the trunk or treat along with hosting a drug take back day on the 28th. We turned over 28 pounds of medication or prescriptions to the county or the group that was collecting it. Now, that wasn't all from this take back day. It was from our drop box and from other take back days that hadn't gotten turned over. So we are still in possession of some prescriptions, but I thought it was pretty impressive. 28 pounds of, you know, outdated stuff. That's not floating around in our kids' hands and. Our officers completed, our state mandated pursuit training at Midstate. That was hosted by the sheriff's department, so we incurred no cost. Officer Murtis and I assisted with Run with the Cops event on October 5th. That's a fundraiser for Special Olympics Wisconsin. I always try to participate in that, not in running, but of course they announced that I was running with kids, but I didn't. But it's really a nice community event and we like to participate in that. I worked one click it or ticket grant, so we'll be getting reimbursed for my wages on that. No updates on Lexipol this month, no mandatory updates or anything, but just with the budget stuff, I haven't had the chance to spend much time on it. Not on this paper, but new today. Legacy grant meeting scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m. I've invited several board members, including the vice president and president. I didn't invite more because I don't want to make it a official meeting and have some illegal meeting type stuff going on, along with school officials, which I guess I'll have to see if there's a response because I don't know how many trustees can be present at a meeting.
I know Mr. Bina is not available.
I know he's not. I talked to Mrs. Miller.
And
Miss
she's probably the one you,
and that's what I said, is at least for the initial, it's gonna be basically an initial meeting with two of the members from the Legacy Board. Rob Sigler, who's a former trustee for the village, and Mike Bovee, who's the chairperson of that committee. Rob did get in contact with him and he was excited and wanted to come to the meeting. So I'm hoping that we can get at least a couple school officials. I did ask Diane and she's gonna try to make it to get at least a feeling for what we may be looking for. At this point, I sensed excitement and some support for a potential relationship with the Legacy Foundation, but I don't have any read as far as that, like how much money that could mean for us. But with that said, maybe we'll have a better feel by the committee of the whole meeting on Monday night. So we'll see. I'm very optimistic and hoping that can solve some of our issues. Nothing staggering as far as squad conditions or payroll. Traffic enforcement was severely down, mainly because of our calls for service and time dedicated to the school this month. Budget, we're pushing it. I'm gonna be tighter than I've ever been, but I'm still doing my best to stay within our means. On our map, I did put on there how many complaints we started at the elementary school and the high school. Now, again, that doesn't mean that there was 37 problems at the high school. That's logging school zones and when I stop out and greet the kids and whatever, but that's just a little bit of our commitment to them. I don't know that you want me to go into budget stuff. Yeah.
No, to set the tone for the budget, and I obviously know your limitations, so what you can say, but could you explain a little bit more I mean, we talked about it at the last committee of the whole, but some of the nature of the complaints at both schools.
So this year is not, I guess, not completely unique, but I guess the frequency of our need has increased. You know, again, we started off the school year on the first day with 2 rapid students being on campus, throwing rocks on top of the school. I forget if it was the first or second day, with marijuana and paraphernalia on them. At the same time, I think maybe it was the next, or maybe it was that
That's all
first
the
day.
first day.
First day. So
Yeah.
later that day, we find a gun and a knife underneath the bleachers at the high school. Turns out it's a BB gun. But still, we don't know what the intentions of this was. So that's how we start off our school year with, you know, just a complete and total whatever. We finished last school year with a student who had been researching on school computers, the frequency of school shootings, the most successful school shootings, the how to make a bomb, this whole entourage of stuff that sends just all these red flags. Now we're at, I forget, I think Principal Shorter told me 22 truancy issues thus far, or suspensions. I
You
think.
can add 2 to that number from today.
So going back, I don't remember what year she told me, but I'm gonna say 2018, because it wasn't all that long ago. Like all year she did 3 suspensions. This year we're at 22 thus far. We're in, well, now November.
24.
Yeah, so 24, sorry. So the frequency of the behavior is just increasing. You know, we have a lot of vapes, we have a lot of whatever, but when I started here in 2019, that was like a big deal. Oh, we found a vape on a student, like, and now it's like, okay, not a vape, take it, bye. It just really, we've had a lot more, we ended up writing them as disorderly conducts, but threats of rape, threats of physical violence, threats of just like, I don't know what is up with these kids, but it is just off the charts, things that we would never, even as adults, think to say to someone. It's went bonkers, which again, even when there's not stuff going on, makes me feel obligated to be there, to be present, to be known, to be in the area. And try to be proactive. We can only be so proactive. I mean, when we're someplace, we're not someplace else. I just, the longevity of our school system, I think depends on our kids' safety. I mean, if my kids go in there and they're threatened to get raped, I mean, I'm not gonna continue to send them there. I'm gonna be homeschooling, or I'm gonna be coming up with alternatives. The school has done a great job, contrary to some comments. The school is doing a great job with caring and dealing with these issues as they come up. But the truth is people who are in their jobs are not getting the opportunity to do their job. It's like me as chief, responsible for finding grants and doing all these great things. I'm a patrol officer 95% of the time, and I'm not complaining about that. I enjoy that part of my job as well. But I think, at some point something's got to give. And again, hopefully we can find some alternative sources of funding, but again, that'd be a temporary fix. They're gonna look for a commitment. The school is now given that commitment, which I'm, very pleased about. I don't know how long that commitment lasts. I mean, I don't know if they can continue to draw out of that fund annually, or if they have to approve whatever, but even Legacy is gonna be looking for that type of commitment from the village and how we can fund this in the future. And I know, and that's gonna be part of my pitch to them on Monday is, we want, but also I think we're reaching the need, threshold, and we just don't have the money. I mean, it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's, it's just not there. But I agree with what Tiara said earlier. We need to start thinking outside the box, and I don't know if that's with shared services or growth or promotion of growth or what, but certainly somewhere there's another community that had to have, went through this type of experience and found some type of savior. Cause I mean, again, if we have the same budgeted amount as what we had 20 years ago, as an overall village budget, of course we have to cut services. It's just a no brainer, but I just don't think we can cut it in public safety. I mean, it's just running that slippery slope. And of course, nobody wants to lose services. And again, at the committee of the whole meeting, it's really easy to say things. I mean, I don't want anybody from any other department to lose their job because I don't think their job's valuable. I do, and we treasure all of these amenities that we have in the village. But, when it comes to my job as the chief, like I'm gonna be the guy at that press conference. And I, it's not gonna be a comfortable situation. And I just, I need to know that I'm doing everything that I possibly can to ensure the future of the department and the school and the safety of those kids. My biggest fear when I took this job, and I told my wife, is like, what if I fail? And she goes, "We're not gonna fail." And I mean, I think that's all of our, like our worst nightmare, and again, I don't think I'm failing, but if something were to happen there, I mean, knowing all the signs, all the, what all of our other communities are doing, and, the acknowledgement, I mean, it doesn't take a week on the news and you're gonna hear of another school incident or another, situation, and it's really all about money. I mean, everybody's heart is in the right place, and regardless of what are said in the meetings, I know everybody does support this, at least at some level. But it's just, where do we get the money for it?
Yeah. And I think what we're dealing with is long-term issues, and not just, let's just get these kids through, this isn't.
Oh,
Get
absolutely.
into the 4 years of, and I think that the phrase of mental health epidemic was used, and I agree, not that I, have done too much research, but you can just all feel it, and it's not something, a long-term thing that isn't gonna go away anytime soon. I think needs to be addressed. The village board already approved the position of a fourth officer. And so it is about funding that fourth officer. Can you give us an update on the school board side of it that happened this week?
Yes, and I don't have the exact total down to a penny, but the school board did vote to approve funding through a fund that's called Fund 80. I don't know much about it, but it is a fund that is accessible by schools for public safety, for certain, itemized things. Dwayne and Superintendent Bina did have conversations on that, negotiations, discussions, and came to an agreement that the school's share of this fourth officer, if we were to dedicate 25 hours per week during the school year, it was 60,000 and change. Now that was voted through. I've heard some differing numbers. But again, all I know is based off of what Dwayne had emailed us. It was 60,000 and change. I mean, there was some rumor that it was 65,000. Again, I do believe that number.
And I'm gonna assume that the intent was their full portion.
Yes,
I
correct.
might
That
have
would
said
be,
an amount, but I'm gonna say if it's up.
yes, it would be the
intent was-
full wages and benefits of supporting an officer for 25 hours a week
During the school year.
during the
Yeah.
school year for the
their
9 months of the
portion
year.
it.
Yes. So that would leave the village portion at about 69,000.
Yeah.
69,000 and change. Now with that number, I didn't see the calculation of where Dwayne and Jim came up with that number, if they used my proposed budget amount for a wage or what they used for that wage. But I mean, again, we're talking a ballpark at least.
Oh,
For the overall wage for that officer, like I haven't done the math to divide that out by the 2080 and to see like, what are they figuring on paying this officer? I don't,
I saw the figure of 131,000.
okay.
I think that's
That's
total
with
cost.
benefits.
That'd be, yeah, it'd be
The
total,
benefits
total
are in
cost.
there,
So,
though, so they're not-
so again, it would depend on which benefit package they chose, if they were married or whatever. But again, I don't know if what they used for a salary, actual wage salary on that. But that to me sounds reasonable. That sounds close to what it should be.
Right, and, what the portion of the school would be given to the village and be understood as revenue. So even though they have a portion, we still have to set aside the entire amount to set aside, expecting that revenue to come in, but you have to,
Right, and so that falls
Pretend that it's not
within
there.
that levy
Oh.
limit or.
so, show us your proposal.
Okay, so, what I did is I reprinted my original proposal to you all. That is going to be the budget sheet with the pink line on top of it.
Okay.
Okay, I was just, actually, the budget with the purple on top of it was what I thought was the most current version of that, of the budget. And apparently there was a new one sent out even more recently.
Yeah, I think on Halloween.
Yes, on Halloween. Again, if you look at the one with the red, or pink on top. I have my original proposal in there for a 3% raise for myself. And the 18.8% raise for the officers. Now, also in your packet of stuff, there should be. I think toward the end. Okay, toward the end, little sheet like this with my letterhead on the top. And then, so that basically is broken down, because I know you're not gonna give a 18.5 or a 20% raise. So I have it broken down by percentages. If the officers were to get a 3% raise, they'd be at, 61,547. And then I have it all just going down. After the 18.8, you'll see it goes 3, 5, 7, 9. Again, just to give you a rough estimate of what you'd be looking at. What I did today on my own copy is I did the math for 2,080 hours and whatever, how much that would increase. So the baseline increase is, the 3%. If you were to go up to 5%, it would cost the village $2,454.40 more than doing the 3%. And again, math's blown on 7%, 4,900. You probably don't need to know all the numbers, but the truth is when we look at this, I come from an agency of 40 officers. So when you talked about a 3% raise, it was, how many hundreds of $1,000s we're talking about when we're talking a department of two officers, it's for each dollar an hour is $2,080 for the whole year. So again, as I mentioned in the last meeting, I think at this point, our officers are getting offers from other departments. They both, want to stay here. They do. They understand that this is a great place to work. It's a great place to raise families and be involved in the school. At some point, something's got to give. And to be honest, like I say, any effort by the board would be greatly appreciated by them and by me, because again, I fear for the longevity.
And so what did you budget for them? What did you?
Well, so in the budget that you're looking at, you're looking at the full amount. So the $227,000 and $227,306 at the top is the total police wages minus or without the, SRO position. So you'll see on the third line down or fourth, the total budget for wages with the SRO would be at 304, 290. Now, if we look at Diane's, copy, I think that's on page 2 of that sheet. She's got the total wages at 210. So if you, and that's with the 3% raise,
Page 2 of what sheet?
of the purple line on top.
Okay.
So she, with the 3%, she's got the total wage again without a SRO at 210. So we're talking a difference of $17,000 with that huge wage increase. Somewhere in between there is the right number that I think you guys will come up with. Again, nobody thinks they're gonna get an 18.5% raise, but again, that's the difference between Dream World 18.8 and 3 is 17.
Where does the
17,000.
18.8 come from?
It comes from my wage,
Okay,
figured with a 3% raise. Subtract 5% for the next lower rank, which would be SRO / whatever you wanna call that person, minus another 5% is where the proper structure for the command structure should be about a 5% gap between rank.
and that's according to kind of nationally or
Yeah, that's
state?
just kind of,
Okay,
I don't know that it's written, it's kind of the, what. When they do the rank and structure, they try to get at least a 5% separation between. And so that's where I went, my wage, and again, I don't think I'm unfairly paid. There's room for discussion on that, but again, I'm not here for the money, but we really have, when I left the county, right after I left, they did a $2 an hour bump plus a 4% for the 3 year. So, I mean, it's really become a competitive process. And, again, do I think we can pay our guys $35 an hour right now? No, I think we should if we had the money, but we don't have the money. So we need to try to bridge the gap and beat, the other sheets that I gave you guys are all either this year's wages or last year's wages or what they're gonna be in 24 for the neighboring agencies. So I mean, we can see that some of those are getting, 3%, some of them are getting, I haven't talked to Nakusa yet. Grand Rapids is getting a 2.5% for 24, county's getting 3%. Rapids says or not, but no, it doesn't say what percentage they're going up, but so the thing is we can't think we're gonna bridge the gap if we give the same amount of increase as what the other municipalities are. We're just gonna continue to grow further and further behind. As far as, I'll try to move it along.
No, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, otherwise, most of the other budgeted items, I mean, I just had a few that I'm concerned about, and again, we could potentially address them if we do get grant funding or do decide to hire this officer. But Diane had proposed to lower the clothing expense from 3,000 to 1,000. And the duty gear from 3,000 to 2,000. So I kind of use those two line items. I don't want to say as the same, but like if somebody needs a uniform shirt, that comes under clothing expense. They need a duty belt, I usually pull it out of duty gear, but that's pretty loose. I can kind of use that, whatever. So this year I have $6,000 between those two to get uniforms, vests, that kind of stuff. And this will drop me down to a total of 3,000. So I can tell you if we do hire an officer, that'll be, over 1,000. It'll be 1,000 for a vest. So then you're talking, uniforms and, all the stuff that we're required to cover that.
Between your, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
between your clothing and police duty gear,
Yep.
what did you say you had in 23?
In 20, oh, maybe I didn't. Let me look here.
I thought you
cleaning
said
expense-
6, but it looks like.
No, you're right. So 22, I had 3 in each. This year I was reduced to 4
Okay,
total, 1 and 3. Thank you for catching that. I was looking at the wrong line. So I had 4 this year and we would cut that again from 22, we had 6, 23, we have 4, and then 24, we'd have 2. So again, things aren't getting any cheaper. Miscellaneous expenses, I had proposed 1,000, that's what we had this year. The usage of that, I mean, is again, when I don't know what other line item to put it under, I put it under miscellaneous expense. You know, Diane is suggesting to drop that down to 500. Again, that's fine if it's okay, but you know, again, I wouldn't kick and fight on any of these, but we're gonna get through 24. I'm just worried about after that, if we continue to reduce. Then I think the next one I had was on the next page, and I think it's just the vehicle. So, Diane informed me before the meeting, that she had talked to Dwayne and they had agreed upon taking the $20,000 out of our 400 account for next year because of just getting this new squad. So in your packet, you should also have a squad replacement plan. I'm very worried that if we do that, we'll be in the same predicament we were in this year, where I'm whatever 300% at my budget line for vehicle expense, because we should be, well, the 21 under the old plan would have been replaced in 25. Okay, it's not gonna be, but if we can milk this 2018, especially if we have an SRO, if we can milk that till 2025, we would have 40 grand in that pot, 20 from 2024 and 20 from 2025. We would be able to replace that, have 3 very functional and newer squads. If we eliminate that 20,000, I don't even know where to go, because that car will then just die. The 2018 will get nothing for it and have no replacement cost or no replacement plan for that. It'd just be eliminated. If we do add a 4th officer, I don't know how that works without a car. You know, you can't have 3 officers working.
What did they tell you for the reason for cutting the 20? Was that meant to help offset the?
I'm assuming it was just yeah, I wasn't really told. It was just because we just got a new car. You know, so again, with this layout, I tried to show that, like, I'm already stretching. I've already, like, we used to replace them every 4 years because of safety, and Lon has brought that up. So now, like, I took it to 5, but now we're already looking at like 7 for the 2018 if we keep that. And again, at some point, I mean, Nakusa, their SRO drives an old junkie squad, you know. It gets them from the school to the office and back and forth. And we could suffice with that for some time. But again, we're already talking a car with 98,000 miles, so it's not gonna be forever. So the 20,000 would purely be to save to get us through this budget, to make ends meet. Cause I think my understanding is with this budget that Diane has proposed, we balance, we're good. We rubber stamp it and off we go. And like I say, if we do that, we're all gonna get, we'll make it another year. But I can't promise you anything after that.
Okay.
And again, you know, I don't know that you're gonna find any answers here tonight, but that meeting on Monday may bring some unicorns and rainbows with, I hope. But it may not, I don't know.
Well, and when is the grant money awarded?
That
That's the,
I
I can't remember.
I mean, I think because of its, and I could be totally wrong, so forgive me. But I think because of its local
Mhm.
That's what I was thinking.
accessibility. When I talked with Rob today, he said that he really wanted Mike Bobby to be there because he didn't want us to waste our time on things that they don't need to know. And so he wanted to be able to direct us to what needs to be, what they need to know, and not all the hype that you might have to fill out with another,
Mhm.
you know, not so local grant. But I think they meet monthly. But does that mean that, you know, if we get it in, you know, if we talk to them and, you know, all you need is this and the financials and we can just basically scan and send and whatever, does that mean that, you know, November, end of November comes, they meet and they, you know, yep, okay, your check's in the mail? I don't know that. You know, but that's what I hope to know more on Monday. You know, does that help you for the committee of the whole meeting? I don't know.
Yeah, and what I think is, and to be clear, Diane on her side has a slightly different budget than what we have in front of us.
Yes,
But really, we should be approving what he presents to us. And I think that in some ways, as I wrestled with this as well, because we'll have the same conversation again. In
Right.
a couple of days.
Yeah.
right,
And in
Right.
some ways, I think that as a public safety, we should be supporting not just the ones, but the needs of the departments. And when I look at these numbers is, I feel like let's highball the numbers because they're not gonna increase the numbers there. They're gonna lower them.
Mm.
So I think that we should, because as public safety, yes, we've been into the committee of the whole meeting already, but with this right now, we don't have all the numbers. And they're still trying to figure things out, so I don't think it's not for us to nitpick and say, well, we can't afford this, because really, the three of us, we can't say we can't afford it. It's not until we have the committee of the whole with Diane for them to, and for the administrator, so. With part of this, so just so to clarify, so we're gonna look at the pink for what we need to approve, and the motion is, and I guess we can make that motion. And a slight amendment to that motion. And I think of this just more editorial, but the motion is gonna be for the committee of the whole instead of FHR. I said FHR to make it consistent with the fire departments, but both of them are gonna go to committee of the whole. So would we, we'll discuss it, once we make it, we'll discuss the finer details of this. Would somebody make a motion to recommend to the committee of the whole the proposed PD 2024 budget? And then we'll discuss it a little bit more.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the committee of a whole, the PD 2024 budget.
Motion by trustee Moore,
Second,
seconded by trustee Grundon. Any discussions? We'll.
do we
discuss
need
it
to
further.
clarify? Not do we need, I think somehow we need to clarify exactly what we're looking at, otherwise the wrong thing might be moving forward.
Could we make an amendment to that motion to say who was proposing it? Proposed by? Do you want a clarification in the
So if you
motion?
just want to retract your motion and then we could back up and.
And then-
Retract my motion.
And so you're asking for it to be rephrased to clarify.
Yeah,
Okay,
doesn't that,
okay, so you'll retract it and any opposition to that? So how would you like that motion to be read to clarify who's?
Proposed by Chief Drew.
you're gonna burn.
So,
we're going down
motion.
together.
so it's gonna say, motion to
I'm out.
recommend to committee of the whole, the PEPD 2024 budget as proposed by Chief Drew. Is that it? As proposed by,
Are you doing comments
Do
yet?
you need me to repeat that now?
well, you don't,
Or are you making a motion?
No.
Just say you'll make that.
I said it.
Make the motion.
Okay, motion again by trustee Moore,
Second,
seconded by trustee Grundon, that is as. You could put in there pink. The pink proposal. the
I
red
am
proposal.
not saying it again.
Okay, so with this now, To clarify with your numbers, is that what is baked in here,
Mhm.
is the officer's 18.8%.
Correct.
So that's the, I think the first thing that we need, to discuss. Did we want to change that to any of the other proposed increases?
I mean, I think we have to. 18 is huge, and as much as I love all of our officers, I mean, that's,
You want the recommendation to come from me? As a reasonable soul.
What would,
So first we need to, vote this motion up or down.
that we're
No, I think
discussing.
discussed, right?
we're discussing.
Oh, I thought you are. Sorry,
He talked about it, but I think we're, yeah, discussing.
okay.
I mean, if we don't all wanna get burned at the stake. I'd like to recommend a 5% increase.
I was actually leaning towards 5% as well.
Same.
I think that shows our officers that we have a commitment to them. We're doing what we can. It's only another $2,500, $2,454. Toward the total budget over the 3%, so,
I'm sorry, just so that this is official on the face, excuse me.
yes.
With these amendments, how do we show that in the motion? Because we've made the motion. It's as proposed, but we're also proposing it as we go along. Maybe I made that motion too soon.
Retract it.
I'm sorry. So that way, I'm sorry, so that the motion then reflects the changes. I apologize for that. That's, it should be retracted, so
Well, you have to make a motion
Retracting.
to talk about it, though.
I know, that is kind of what
So
was.
don't we talk about it and then retract it and then make a new motion and then don't listen to me.
I know, well,
Or
because
we just-
we have been
Or
talking about it
people and
previously,
retract
so let's
stuff all the
just.
time.
Or we just vote on it and then somebody can bring another motion. Right?
Let's just,
Let's call Jill.
no, let's just keep going and then we will, make those amendments in the motion. That way we don't have to confuse ourselves. Just keep going. So,
I'm not confused at all.
yeah. So, with that, do we agree that the numbers then should reflect a 5% increase for the officers?
Yes.
Okay,
Do you want the number for that top wage without the officer or without the SRO? For on the pink sheet for the officers at the rate of a 5% raise, which would be 64, 625, 60 each annually. That would be 129, 251, 20 plus.
This is only 2% more than what we're
Correct.
taking across the board, so it's not actually 5.
Correct. The two officers would receive a 5% raise instead of a 3% raise. That would not affect my salary or the SRO.
right.
So what I have for that, that top number for police wages. I'm just comparing with Diane's here. I'm just making sure I have that right. Is actually only $287.83 different than what she had. I'm not sure. She had on her proposed budget 210, and I have 210, 287. That's not taking into consideration any overtime or anything like that. But
So what kind of, because she was proposing the 3%?
I'm assuming so, but I don't know if there was, and without talking to her, I don't know if there was anything baked into that as far as.
I think it's close enough. We'll figure out how to come up with
Okay.
those numbers, but we want them to have 5%.
I like it.
The next part of it, everything else,
Everything else, the only ones that I had highlighted, comparatively, for that discussion was clothing expense. Duty gear. Miscellaneous, the ones that I had brought up, the conferences, we have it 1,000 and I'd like to increase that just because that's our training. But again, I think. I guess the major one would be the $20,000 in the capital, or in the 406 account. I know that's kind of where she was looking to save some money on the police side. So again, we can certainly, that money's not gonna be spent in 2024. But then what I would ask for 25 is 40,000 in there.
Right.
So I mean, if you don't think we can find 20 this year, I highly doubt we're gonna be able to find 40 next year.
So that'd be the next part, is whether we'd want it with or without the $20,000. Diane has hers without it, you have yours with it, so.
Correct.
I think we should kind of clarify, because she's gonna ask and think it was maybe an oversight of our part.
Right.
So I think it should be explicitly stated if we want it or not.
So, okay, the funding doesn't, let's say the funding doesn't happen, can't happen, I don't know. I mean, the village can take out a loan on a vehicle, right? What does that look like for the village though? I mean, I know they do that for fire trucks, because that's a huge expense, but it, having never worked through that process, but is that something where we're like, okay, if we're 20 grand short the next time or whatever it is? You know, I mean, obviously, we'd rather pay for it and be done with it, but if we have to, do we just take out a loan then?
If we had to.
Hmm.
I mean, we don't wanna do that, obviously.
And looking back in prior budgets, it looks like what Joe had done in the past is he would just get the total cost at, you know, he'd be go, oh, we're gonna buy a new squad car. Next year we need 25,000, and they would put that in that fund and he would have it for that year. But again, I mean, if we think we've got a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, super, but. I don't know. I mean, we all see how much over I went this year with, you know, the vehicles rose 10 grand in 2 years prices.
It's crazy.
It is. And, you know, I don't suppose they're gonna go down. I'll shut
So
up now,
it is
sorry.
our desire as a committee to keep the $20,000 in there.
Well, I think of course it's our desire, but I don't know, like, where's that 20 grand coming? That's the problem, right? We don't know where the 20 grand's coming from.
Well,
I'm
that's,
not completely comfortable for asking for that back because, I mean, Diane might have a bigger picture vision that she's looking at. And if we had to, we could find some other alternative. And I don't want to overreach and have anybody misunderstand and think we're not taking seriously all the
Mhm.
work and time that she's put in here, because she does have the bigger picture. I think the 20 is a big ask.
I think we leave it and talk about it in committee of a whole.
Well, we're supposed to vote on it today.
I know, but I think
leave
we,
it. Sorry.
I think we leave it out and talk about it as committee as a whole and raise our concern, but then at that point, I'd like to hear what you're saying, like, where could this come from? I'd like to have the loan discussion, all
Leave
of
it
those
in,
pieces.
you're saying.
Leave it,
that
the-
20
no. No,
Leave it out.
correct, and then bring it up there to say, this is a, you know, we voted on this. But this is a concern we have, so then we can talk about. What the options are,
I'm sorry.
right?
Sorry, I wanna clarify, because it's not computing in my head. You say leave it out, you're saying leave it out of the budget or leave it out of the motion? It's currently, if we say as presented, it's gonna have the $20,000 in there. So the only way we'd have to say if it's as presented, and there's no reference to it, then it's gonna
Right.
stay in.
I wonder if we, rather than doing the version that Chief Drew presented, if we stick to the version that Diane presented, but make amendments on line items that are really pressing rather than the whole thing, if that,
Well,
the amended version.
how many of the changes, what were the other changes between the two?
Well, honestly, the main thing was the wages, but that doesn't seem to be that much of a disparity. The clothing expense. duty gear I can live with. I guess I would maybe ask for 1,000 more in the clothing expense.
So between yours, let me look at it. Oh,
So I had 3, she's got 1. I would
That kind
work,
of gets you a vest, right?
it gets me a vest,
Yeah.
you know, but no uniforms or,
oh, sorry.
but again, if we're gonna end up funding that officer, you know, now you're looking at another 76,984 plus, you know, plus. So, I mean, the truth is we can get this. I mean, if we're not adding anything, then, I mean,
So going through here,
Which copy is Diane's?
Diane's is the
Purple.
purple.
Okay.
so there's other changes, there's, she had 1,000 for safety community programs, 1,000 for conferences, you had 2,000. Everything else was 500 for miscellaneous, you had 1,000, so I mean, there's gonna be a lot of,
I know.
um.
I think we have to put in there, if we're working on Diane's, I think we have to put in there to specify the wage increases, so
Yeah.
they know what we're
Correct.
seeing there, and then. Beyond that, Scott. Clothing expenses, you're looking for another grand, I agree with that, especially, you know, for the vast reason, that's gonna cost 1,000 there. Conferences is another one I worry about, I know how expensive conferences are, and to only give a grand. For people to
Mhm.
stay up on the latest and greatest in the police world, I think that's gotta be increased as well, so. Another grand there. For me, the jury's still out on the vehicle, I see where you're coming from, I'd like to put in 20 grand, but that's also a huge chunk of. Change that had to have gone somewhere else to balance the budget, we don't have an answer for that, I have the same concern, and if it means it's a loan later. I don't love that idea, but what else do we do?
Well, and again, with that legacy grant, that's stuff I would ask for.
Right.
If
So.
we're doing SRO, I would ask for a vehicle.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, again, it's not a long-term solution, but it's, I mean, if we got a new car, that would help.
So, and then what were the other ones?
The ones I had highlighted were the clothing expense, which she had 1, I had 3, and we're saying 2. Okay, so I can agree with that. The duty gear, she had 2, I can agree with 2 if that's acceptable to you guys. From my 3.
Okay.
The miscellaneous expenses, I mean, I can cave on that. I mean, it's $500. You guys okay with the 500 instead of 1,000 on mine? Conferences, I would like to stick to the 2,000 instead of 1,000.
Hold on 1 second, Drew,
Yep.
so. The police miscellaneous expenses in 2023, or I'm sorry, 2022 was $223. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, I have not utilized that fund, but
And she took
It's-
it down to,
she took it down to 500. Because I have not utilized much out of that.
mhm,
I did. Well, I actually just did submit the squad repairs and was attempted to do it under miscellaneous, but. She told me to put it back under vehicle expenses, so.
okay. So. What other things would be out of miscellaneous?
I think my petty cash, you know, anything that we may have to pick up for supplies, batteries,
Trunk or treat.
Candy,
trunk or treat. Honestly, I use the police, safety
Community.
/ community for the trunk or treat. And your candy right there is supplied by that, but. You know, I get it, we gotta tighten our belts, and if it
Okay.
means not buying as much promotional stuff, I stocked up on stickers this year. I haven't spent any in my range budget this year. I mean, just like, I wanna be a team player.
So, so on her, so this is an older one because she still has the $20,000
I
in.
was just looking at that, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So she printed this was from what, last week?
this was from the committee of the whole meeting last week, this one, the purple.
So then where did that 20,000 go? Cause we were balanced as in the committee of the whole last week. Anybody have any idea? Right? It was balanced at the committee of the whole.
I don't know. Like I say, I didn't know that this draft existed until FHR, or
So-
just shortly before.
So.
And so there's been adjustments between that committee and this committee. Now it's gonna be really confusing which numbers we go with
So before we move forward, miscellaneous expenses, I think we just leave it
at,
500,
500.
okay,
agreed.
so, I'm gonna assume that we're gonna assume she kept all of her numbers the same except with the, minus the 20,000. We're gonna assume that.
Yeah, I'm checking. real
So,
quick
so
for you.
there's no changes to the second page.
But hold on, the police duty gear, if, as of September 30th, 1,250 has been spent. So if you consider taking on the fourth officer, knocking that down to 2,000 might not pan out. Am I thinking that right?
Mhm.
But again, if we get a fourth officer, we're looking for funding for that anyways.
No, that's,
I mean, the fourth officer thing, until we have some more clarity, I think we're just stuck.
all right, so police duty gear, we're fine with that.
So I do need you to just go straight from the top to bottom because I wanna make sure.
The only things that changed, so the first line item, which has to do with salary.
Yeah.
We're not that far off, but it's just a matter of saying, we'd like to propose a 3% increase for Chief Drew and a 5% increase for the officers. The next thing that got changed was police clothing expenses.
So
Yeah.
hold on, do we need to have a dollar amount in that budget line to propose?
I think we just give it to
Yeah.
Diane, because when he just did the math on it and I did it too, it's only the difference of 280 some
She might
dollars.
have
which doesn't
something,
make
she might
sense.
have something
Yeah.
else that she knows that's part of the calculation that we're forgetting.
So
Um,
So this
hold,
is the number.
hold on, don't anybody say anything. I think we might have just bumped out of the Zoom.
You Carrie,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Just click the logo at the bottom in the task bar. It might have been minimized. Yeah.
Yeah,
it
we're
is
still on there.
Minimized.
So
So-
the next thing was the police clothing
Okay, was-
expenses.
Up 2,000.
We, yeah, wanted to bump it
Okay.
up 1,000. Then the police conferences wanted to bump
Yep.
that up 1,000. And then this is where things get confusing because we go on the next page and that 20 grand is still in there. So I'm trying to re-pull up Diane's thing that she sent.
I have it here. I have a hard copy.
So hold on, the police clothing expense was 3,000, now,
We're asking for 2. Or that's what we've been talking about.
Right.
2.
'Cause
Full
we're-
well knowing if someone new comes on, we're going to have to, and that's the thing with budgets, you set them and sometimes things go awry, right? We
Right.
all try to stay within the limits, but if
Right.
something major changes, if all of a sudden a fire truck, something catastrophic happens, we're gonna have to figure something out, so.
Right.
Again, I think we're not gonna have 20/20 vision on this thing, we do the best we can.
all right, so just so we get this documented right. We're requesting a change on the clothing expenses up to 2,000. What was the other?
The police conference is up to 2,000.
Where's that? Oh, down here, okay.
And then,
And then the only issue, so Scott, on the current one, you're showing $0 in the police vehicle fund.
Yes,
okay,
And that's the one that Diane gave you.
correct.
So backing up to the salary, we're gonna put on that line item 5% increase.
For the police officers, 3% for Chief Drew. Scott, you think that 3% is fair for you?
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, I'll take the 18.8, just saying.
Jason, what do you want?
Yeah.
18? He wants 18.82.
So I think revert back to what you.
And I would even offer that if it makes it more feasible for the officers to get a higher raise, that I would take a lower raise.
We're not gonna do that.
So,
I didn't figure you would, but I wanted to make it at least an offer, so.
Okay, any other pieces on there?
So the changes, proposed changes we have are 5% for officers, 3% for chief, 2,000 on police clothing expense, and 2,000 on police conference.
Correct.
yeah. I'm just double checking her numbers because I have it up here from,
Yeah, this was sideways business.
I know it is. Because I know if I turn my phone, it's gonna turn the orientation too. Looks like everything
Well-
else is what was printed with
Oh,
the.
okay, cause I have
No,
a hard
let me
copy
change
here.
Okay,
if you
it was
want
just
it.
that, so.
Cause I think that was from FHR, right?
Well, FHR just happened, so
Yes.
that's why we don't have it.
So she,
Well, but these two were here for it. So you should have a hard copy from the FHR packet.
No, that
And
is
they
true.
didn't explain what changed, that 20,000, just where it went.
No, I think.
I wasn't,
So,
he just told me about it, cause
And maybe that's not how it worked, that's
I-
fine,
yeah.
but I'd like to. Ask that. at some
so
point, I guess.
let's, for the last time, retract that motion. We're gonna retract that motion. And you're gonna say the motion to approve and help, we'll work with the language until we get it right so that we
So
know what we're
motion
doing.
to recommend to the committee of the whole, the proposed PEPD 2024 budget from Diane with the following amendments. Do you just want me to say this now? Like, I think,
Yeah.
Keep your pants on there.
Yes, and actually,
Okay.
even say dated. You say dated 10/31,
10/31.
so that they know exactly the date that we're referencing.
You want this?
no,
Dated
it's be
10/31.
confusing, but thank you. Okay. So
Motion.
withdraw the old one.
Yeah,
I think that was the
Nothing's
last
on, nothing
one.
on the table.
Okay, so I want to make a motion to recommend to the committee of the whole, the proposed PEPD 2024 budget from Diane dated 10/31 with the following amendments. We would like to include a 3% salary increase for Chief Drew and a 5% salary increase for the officers. We'd also like to add an additional $1,000 to the police clothing expenses, bringing that total to 2,000. And we'd like to add an additional $1,000 for police conferences, bringing that total to $2,000.
I would agree with those numbers. You made it. And a second. Can you repeat that? Second.
because we're trying to go on.
Second. I'll second that motion. Any discussions?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We did something.
That was
Wow,
easy.
That was fun. That was, okay.
Gonna go home and write these grants next.
There is no old business. Is there any new business?
So just want to remember the retirement plaque or whatever piece that is, right? I don't know if we have to talk about that or that just will be done.
I think, because I don't think it was really discussed. It just happened, right? With the plaque.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, I spoke with Scott Stewart and he and I are gonna put something
Okay.
together, if it's okay with you guys.
that's
course.
fine. Yeah, I mean, keep us in the loop if it's fitting for us to do something as well. Either,
Probably do it at the full board.
yeah,
meeting.
maybe, yeah, that'd be best.
That's
okay.
No, if no other news business correspondence, I didn't receive any correspondence. Did anybody else? Agenda items for next meeting, I've been really busy this last month. For instance, I got married, but, besides that,
Congratulations.
as I settle things down, the big thing that honestly I forgot about until today was like, oh, our ad hoc committee, so we'll try to start talking with Dwayne when we want to start that ad hoc, pertaining to the bylaws and all of that, because he has something in his head of how that should look and work, so.
So are you saying agenda item for the next meeting?
Well, I guess in some ways that was kind of old business because we talked about it. I'm not saying that's an agenda item, but just to know that is going, we need to. That's still on the table that needs to get done, but that's not in this committee because it's ad hoc. But since it came out of here, I wanted us to remember that. Any other items for next meeting? For our last meeting of the year?
Gosh,
Well, hopefully
Lexipol. Lexipol
we'll need to
update on both
relook at-
departments.
We'll look at, start looking at Lexipol, especially as the contract comes to its conclusion or could be. Anything else in from your departments that you had? Needs to be, okay. Next meeting date, would like to figure that out now or figure that out?
Up to you guys.
I would like to attempt to figure it out now, honestly.
Okay, so the next, this looks like the next. The village meeting is on the 12th of December. As of right now, I don't think there's any other meetings that's been scheduled. FHR, I think we've forgone.
Well, and actually, maybe we just schedule Pitt right now. What's wrong here?
So remind me, because our village board meeting's on the 12th, Diane would like us to meet by the previous Wednesday. Is that what she was asking for?
Yeah, because we were all piled on,
Like the Thursday? I don't remember.
I think she wanted it like a week before, early in the week.
As long as she has motions to her, so like, as long as motions can get to her by like Thursday or Friday.
I mean, yeah, if we met like on the 7th, we just maybe need to make sure that all the minutes and everything gets there ASAP so she knows.
What about Wednesday, the 6th for public safety and Tuesday, the 5th for Pitt? Unless you want to attempt to do them. Oh, wait, what works? When's the fire department meetings? Is that Wednesday?
Wednesdays, yeah.
What
Or we
if we
could
do
flip
them both
that.
on Tuesday night? What if we do both of them?
5 and 6? I'm fine with that.
You good?
Okay,
So,
hit on the 5th
At 5 and then public safety at 6?
at 5.
Hmm?
Both of them on the night. I thought.
Yeah, so we do,
I thought you said
why don't
Wednesday.
we do public safety first, because Pitt could be shorter, and if Pitt's shorter.
I
we
was
could
thinking
be,
that too, because then they have to shut after an hour.
okay, so Pitt will do at
did you say
6.
you have? to
Yes,
shorter
I said
day?
me.
Hit
Pitt's at 6 and public safety at 5
Perfect.
on
You
the
make
5th.
that.
On the 5th.
on the 5th.
Ugh,
Does that work for you guys? Okay.
Is that good for you?
I guess so. I don't have anything.
I mean, I like it. Getting it done in one night.
Okay,
Forces
okay.
us to be-
Without objection and with no further business, I adjourn this meeting at 6:23.
What